Okay. All right. Hi, my name is Stint. I've produced for artists such as Demi Lovato, Gallant, Sabrina Claudio, and lately I've been working with Wisp, Ari Abdul, Health. Yeah, this is my studio. I'm here with Oak Sound to show you some of their plugins and how I've been using them on my tracks. So I'm originally from Canada, Vancouver, BC to be exact, and I came down to LA once I found out producing records was a real job. I kind of started making bootleg remixes, which somehow got me into the room with Lana Del Rey and Kesha and Demi Lovato. Also, simultaneously to getting those bigger rooms, I was developing artists such as Gallant and Sabrina Claudio. The album I did with Gallant got me my first Grammy nomination in 2017. And lately I've been working on more alternative stuff, which is kind of what I grew up playing and listening to when I was a kid. So yeah, I'm really excited lately. It's been great. I learned sound design at a film school, and that I think informed my early production and still a bit of my work today. I just love working with like the kinetic feeling of sound and transience and how things kind of feel in headphones into the ear. I kind of approach any project I get involved with trying to kind of provide a counterbalance to what's there already. I like bringing in the unexpected or just a little flavor of it. If I'm working with someone, an artist in a specific genre, they may have like fallen in love with that genre so deeply that they aren't being exposed to what's happening on this whole other side of music. That's kind of what's always been exciting to me, is like challenging us to not make something that slots very nicely in like a playlist or a genre or a trend, because I feel like if you just become too on the nose in specific genres and just do everything kind of like correctly, you become part of the noise, and you get lost in time very quickly these days. This is a song called Sword by an artist named Wisp. I kind of worked with a few other producers on this song, and I was the one that kind of saw it over the finish line. We've got live drums, we've got vocals, we've got a lot of noisy, washy guitars, and kind of breathy vocals, which I love to use Oak Sound's products to help deal with. Obviously, Soothe is a well-known plugin for dealing with kind of harsh frequencies. It's kind of doing a lot of things under the hood that I don't understand, but I always like the results of. So I'll play you like a section to see what I mean. So, you can already hopefully get what I mean when I'm talking about that. I turn to not living with fear. What are you afraid of? Washing clothes with all the stains that I made on them. I see you walking in. Clearly, there's a lot kind of going on in the high end of Soothe. You can see all this noise being cleaned up. I kind of find that you can have a very noticeable DSE sound when you're dealing with like vocals that are very kind of whispery and breathy to begin with. A de-esser typically can kind of just end up sounding like you're over squashing it and get that kind of gross over-compressed sound, and you lose the sibilance. You just kind of lose a lot of clarity in the wrong way. So obviously I've got ProQ doing some of the heavy lifting too at the end with that new spectral algorithm. I assume that's doing similar stuff to what Soothe kind of pioneered. I find just keeping these guys as a catch-all on my vocal group in Ableton is just like a really good safety net. Kind of got a nice like amped guitar sound. See where it kind of pokes out. I think like typically on like heavy guitars, it's the 1K, 2K kind of brittleness that can get too much. From time to time, I use Soothe on these to like help kind of tame some of that, noise that's not very like useful to the mix. And then I find Soothe sometimes is just really helpful to sidechain to another track that you feel like has competing frequencies. You can kind of identify the kind of problem frequencies in one, sidechain that to another, and then it gets out of the way really nicely. I find I'm moving so fast these days in the writing process. I like leaning on the algorithm in Soothe to kind of intelligently like get stuff out of the way, so I'm not like doing a ton of frequency sweeps trying to really find like problems and resonances and all that bullshit. I feel like I want it to handle my problems for me because I frankly don't want to spend the time to do it in the middle of songwriting. I think I want to keep the session moving and keep the energy up with the artist and songwriters. Soothe is a really like quick and very efficient way to like have stuff and different layers working together. Bloom is kind of a similar, everything bus catch-all safety net that I use a lot of the time when I'm dealing with kind of wall of sound production, which this kind of clearly is. There's a ton of guitars going on. We got bass. And then obviously the drum. So I mean, clearly, this isn't even a cymbal heavy song. So there's, again, the high-end harshness. I haven't been using Soothe on the cymbals because I feel like Bloom kind of does stuff I like, and I start to hear Soothe too much on an overall mix if I've got it on every chain. So kind of having a nice balance of like Soothe on one group, Bloom doing the other group is a good way to just keep me from doing the same moves on everything, which will then just end up carving out too much of the same range. Bloom also, I find, has been a lot better in keeping my like transients punchy and cleaning up a lot of like the low muddiness, which I know Soothe can do, but Bloom just feels a little more like a classic multi-band smack, like has a tiny bit of that like OTG quality to it, where everything just sounds better if you slam it a little bit and give it a bit of that California smile. So that's what I've been doing. I've been like usually using it overall on my instruments, like as a way to just kind of clean up stuff before I even send it to my mix bus, which on this session is just Ozone. In a lot of Wisp stuff, there's just like kind of frankly a lot of like washy noise to kind of deal with. And I feel like Bloom has been awesome at carving out basically like any of the extraneous noise that's produced with music like this, and helps each layer and kind of frequency range, bass, guitar, super high synths, drums, all kind of have their own place in the mix. So let's try Bloom on my drum bus. This is live drums recorded at Sunset Sound. I'm gonna pull up the drum bus preset I'm gonna do an A-B with Bloom on and off. That was off, this is on. It's definitely helping out a lot in these high mids, I can hear that. The low end's got a lot more kind of weight to it. I love that. Let's hear what it's doing up here. Yep. Subtly, I like how it's giving a little bit more weight to the snare too. That was something I was struggling with this song because our direct mic just had a lot of piff to it on the snare, and I wanted the room weight, but without that close mic kind of punch. I like it a lot. Yeah, off. The cymbals get brighter immediately. Yeah, that's great. I find with Bloom too, the sweet spot can be easily found with just the mix percentage too. If you know, it's probably gonna do stuff that cleans up any kind of mess in either the lows or the highs. That can be a great thing, but sometimes you can go too far with that and your mix can kind of lose a lot of the liveness and life and just kind of chaos that you want in there. So if something's not 100% there when it is turned up to max, I'll just dial the mix back like 50, 25%. Keeps it classy. I love it. Yeah, honestly, I wish I put this when I when I sent it to mix. I wish I put this on the drum bus. Yeah, that's sick. Thanks so much for being here with me today and checking out some Oak Sound plugins. Love those guys to death. This song was Sword by Wisp. Go check it out.